Hi, I'm Caitlin from SkyTalker. So great to talk to you both today.
Hi. Hello.
Hi. You guys have talked about how this show is about kids, but it's not just for kids, and that a show like Skeleton Crew takes its kids and their stories seriously. Why is it important to take these young characters' stories seriously?
I remember being 10 years old and really wanting everyone to take me seriously. So I guess I've never dropped that.
Yeah, I mean, Star Wars is already this fantasy land, world, universe, galaxy, and we wanted the kids to just feel real, like actual kids. And part of that is just that if they're in danger, they're actually in danger. They're not like it's not a team of superhero kids. So, you know, we think that when kids are in danger, it's really riveting for people of all ages.
Yeah. And it's important for me to like not look down on kids. You know, I want to be able to take them seriously, take their perspectives seriously, and to tell this story from like through their eyes. You know, it really, for us, really like opened up a lot of doors to the storytelling as well. It made the Star Wars galaxy like feel like completely new and fresh again.
Alex, next question.
Hi, this is Alex from Star Wars Explained.
Hi.
So, hi. The kids are from a very suburban-inspired homeworld, and that's a new and unique environment for Star Wars. So, what challenges did you run into translating a more familiar aesthetic into the Star Wars setting?
I mean, we feel like a lot of Star Wars is already pulling familiar aesthetics and recreating it into an alien, planet. Like Coruscant isn't like some weird alien city where the buildings are made out of stalactites or something. Like it looks like New York.
Yeah.
Just on a different scale.
Yeah.
And we just really felt strongly that as a story point, to make it clear that these kids were coming from a place of feeling wistful and kind of that they wanted more the way that we felt when we were kids and we wanted to stop doing our homework and go outside and
It's that longing for adventure.
look for an adventure, yeah. That we felt like it would be really, really clear. I mean, we were talking about how Doug Chiang's designs are always so good because they are really fast reads. You know, you see the silhouette of something and you feel you know so much about it. And so much of that comes from pulling from our real world. And, if this certain planet feels a little more American, because that's the thing, is we think it probably is actually more American than Earth. Because, there's deserts and things on Earth.
I grew up in a desert.
Yeah.
Tatooine looks like.
Exactly. But that, I don't know, that it
There's like a bit of an American graffiti reference as well, too.
Right.
I mean, we started talking about it to Lucasfilm and Doug Chiang and the whole design team over there, just sort of starting from an emotional perspective of like, how do you capture that feeling of like, you're in a safe environment, but you're longing for adventure.
Kerwin and Keith, you have the next question.
Hello, we're Kerwin and Keith of Father Son Galaxy.
hello.
Congratulations on the new series, and we really enjoyed the episodes. This question is for both Mr. Watson and Mr. Ford. Why did you choose to set the story after the fall of the Empire and during the rise of the Republic?
Great question.
Yeah, I mean, basically, because the kids were going to get lost in the galaxy, we kind of wanted to find a time that would be the worst for them. So, even if the Empire was around and maybe there was more of like a functioning government or something, but, obviously the New Republic is around, but it's kind of still trying to get its act together. And we felt like we could interpret this part of the timeline as being a little bit more chaotic, maybe a little more lawless. So we have these pirates that are kind of ascendant, and it was just a fun time for the kids to be in a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
And then also we were working so closely with Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni, who had been developing so much in that same time period, and so we were able to like trade,
Yeah, piggyback off of some of the things that they had already been exploring and designing. So the short answer is like it's the absolute worst time for the kids to get lost in the galaxy, which is great for the story.
John, your question?
Hi, Chris and John. I'm John from the Resistance broadcast. Congratulations,
Hi.
first off.
Thanks.
Thank you.
So after tackling the pressure of making movies for a generationally beloved character like Spider-Man, what did you learn from that experience and bring with you to Star Wars? And did it help your confidence in your decision-making making Star Wars?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing I probably learned from making Spider-Man movies is like you just have to try to be the biggest fan that you can be, and let that guide the decisions that you make, and start to trust your own spidey sense.
Nicely done.
But this was a completely new challenge because Peter Parker is an established character. You know, we've seen movies about Peter Parker. There's so many comics about Peter Parker. For this one, it's just the world that we've been given, and that's like a very wide open place to be operating, and we're creating our own characters within that. So fortunately, having, you know, Dave and John there as sort of like a big safety net underneath you, like makes you feel like you have the freedom to sort of run with your ideas, and they'll let you know if you've veered too far off course.
Thank you.
Charlotte and Caitlin, back to you.
Hi, Chris and John. This is Charlotte from Sky Talkers. We've really loved the series, so thank you so much for taking the time to talk
Thanks.
with us.
Thank you.
Sort of a non-serious question. We were wondering, we wanted to ask you about the planet name At Aden. Is this a play on the debate of how to pronounce AT-AT or At Aden or At?
Yeah, I mean, it was not conscious, but as soon
But I think
as
it probably has developed
yeah.
out of that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes the names you're not exactly sure what part of your brain they came from.
Yeah.
I think you've just solved it. This is more like therapy. Like, wow, you're right.
Yeah.
Also, the way Jod would pronounce his what was great was At Aten was always written, and
Yeah.
and then you'd hear how other people would say it out loud.
Yeah.
And then it was always like everyone always had a different interpretation until we had to like say, no, it's
Yeah.
At Aten.
But that was cool
Like,
because
at a team.
Yeah, I remember like hearing some kind of interview with George Lucas where he would say that too, like, oh, different people can pronounce things different ways. It's a big galaxy, and so, yeah.
Yeah.
Alex, your question?
So you just mentioned being kind of the biggest fan you could be when you're creating stories like this, and you have included some very fun nods to some of the earliest Star Wars stories
Yeah.
after A New Hope. And so I'm curious what Star Wars stories shaped your personal love of Star Wars.
I mean, when I was a kid, you know, I was the age where my exposure was just watching them on VHS, and I also had the Ewok Adventures taped off of TV. And to my eye, they were the same. They're all just part of the same thing. So, I mean, I was definitely a huge fan of those.
He also grew up in Marin, like right over the hill from Skywalker Ranch. So like literally over the hill behind his house, like was Star Wars. So
Yeah,
like
yeah.
you were very like exposed to Star Wars at a very high rate at an early age.
Yeah, it was like a local project.
Yeah.
But at the same time, still seemingly so distant. And like when we were kids, we thought we could, you know, go off and walk through those hills and like sneak onto Skywalker Ranch somehow, but we never made it that far.
My first big exposure to Star Wars was like the games. Like I would play TIE Fighter and X-Wing, like more than the movies because the special editions weren't released until 97. So like I weirdly entered into, like I knew about Star Wars, but we were in a Star Wars family like you.
Yeah.
So like I entered from like a completely
So you
oblique
started
angle.
playing the game, then when you watched the movie, you were like, what is he doing? He's balancing his shields all wrong.
Yeah, I was thinking about the wrong thing.
Kerwin and Keith?
Yes, hello, John and Chris.
Hi.
How many child actors did you audition for the 4 major roles? And what unique qualities did Ravi, Ryan, Robert, and Kariana bring to their roles that made them stand out from the others?
We auditioned so many kids, like hundreds of kids.
Yeah, and our casting director saw even more.
We probably saw hundreds, and our casting director probably saw like thousands. Like it was crazy, and it's a very weird feeling because you see so many kids that are great, that are like great actors, great performers that could do it, but you have to have the patience to sort of wait for the kid that truly embodies the character to walk through the door.
Yeah, like you're waiting for the actual character to walk in.
Yeah.
Because they're kids and you want them to just be themselves, not have to put on a character.
Yeah, I had the opportunity to hang out with Richard Donner like a couple weeks before he died, actually. And he was talking to me about Goonies and casting the Goonies, and he said, when you're casting kids, you don't cast kids to play a role, you cast kids because of who they are. And then he told me a story about like a Goonies reunion, and he was like, everyone, it was like 20 years later, he was like, they were all exactly the same. as they were when they were kids. Like, they broke off into the same groups, they were telling the same stories, like they were playing the same pranks that they did when they were kids. So I really took that to heart, and it just means you have to be really patient and like wait for the perfect person to walk into the room.
John?
So with Skeleton Crew being a callback to those 80s coming-of-age films, Amblin, Jude Law being no stranger to Spielberg, having worked with him
Yes.
in AI,
Gigolo
playing
Joe.
a whimsical character there. Did you borrow from any classic characters over time in shaping Jod for Skeleton Crew, or was he a complete organic thing from your imaginations?
The funniest, the weirdest connection that we've put together in doing these interviews over the past 2 days is like, you know, we would think a lot about, in the way that George would be inspired by, you know, samurai movies or World War II movies for the original trilogy. Like, we went back to a bunch of old like pirate movies and pirate serials. And
From like the 30s.
From the 30s, like the Seahawk and
Captain
Blood. And Errol Flynn was in a lot of them. And Jude played Errol Flynn in The Aviator. So it's like Jude was already a space pirate in Star Wars, and we just had to get him out of retirement. That's what it felt like.
But we also really wanted the character to feel like richly, like he's from so many stories. Like,
yeah, like he's lived a lot of lives.
Because the kids are like brand new and naive, and we wanted him to feel like maybe someone who hasn't seen a bunch of Star Wars things would think that he was a character from the comics or something, that he's a reference. And we wanted him to feel like he had all these past experiences, and so he has like different aliases, and he's been around the galaxy so many times.
Yeah, like
and
one of his names, Crimson Jack, is from a Star Wars comic.
Yeah, and you know, he's just like, I don't know, because you were saying that when you watched those special editions, you were also watching Gattaca for the first time and getting introduced to Jude Law. So it was kind of like he just felt like he'd had already been in Star Wars.
Yeah, something in like our brains had already created this character, and he was already played by Jude Law. We just had to get him to say yes.
And luckily, he was a fan.
Yeah, and Jude's a huge Star Wars fan. I don't know.
I think he was. I don't know, waiting for the right role for him to be able to finally do it.
Charlotte and Caitlin, you have the last question.
Okay, so for our last question, Mick Giacchino created the score for Skeleton Crew. How important was the music in setting the tone for the show?
I mean, it's essential, and it's a really funny thing when you're trying out temp music, when you're editing, before you have the actual score recorded. Like, if you put the wrong music on a scene, you've ruined the scene. Like, you've seen I love the clips where you're watching Star Wars without any music, and it's just the sound. And like, especially in Star Wars, like, music really elevates it and takes it to another place. So to be able to work with Mick, I've been working with his dad on all the Spider-Man movies and knew how great Mick was, and this was just like such a fantastic opportunity for him to finally show off what he can do.
All right, that's all the time we have for this roundtable. Thank you all for coming. Please say your goodbyes and exit the Zoom room.
Bye. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Bye.